Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to Windsor Park here for our Bet McLean pre-match show before our game today against Coleraine. Just like to take this opportunity to thank a couple of sponsors. We'd like to thank our ball sponsor for today's game, which is Click NI, and our programme sponsor, which is Ballymoney and District Linfield Supporters Club. Now I'll introduce our two guests. We have Linfield's Women's Assistant Manager, Adam Carson, joining us today for his first appearance on the show, and a regular appearance on the show, Linfield Chairman Roy McGivern. Thanks very much for joining us. Adam, I'll come to you first.
Thanks very much for having me on. It's an honour to be asked, so I'm looking forward to chatting before the game today, and hopefully then at the end of the day we have a positive result for the Blues.
And Roy, again, thanks for joining us today.
No problem at all. It's good to be here. It's a big week ahead for the club. 3 big games this week, which could put us in a really good position, so looking forward to today's game.
Adam, tell us a little bit about the women's side of things then. We have you on to talk about that and the big, massive improvements that have been made this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sort of first of all we talk about the league position. Going from 5th to 3rd this season has been massive. Not just for our group of players, but for the club. Progression within the cups as well, being the only team from the north to progress to the quarterfinals of the All-Ireland tournament has been fantastic. But again, we have now been reflecting and we're understanding what we did well, what we didn't do so well. But overall, the players we've brought in, the improvements from players that we've had already has been astronomical. So it's then how can we build on that throughout this season and next season.
You mentioned progression there in the All-Ireland competition. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the difference in standards then between the two leagues.
I would say probably the standard in the Republic is more level. I think that all the teams within the league they're at a very high standard. They're working well. I think here we're getting better at that. We're becoming professional a lot quicker. And I think this season especially has shown that we can compete whenever we go and play them teams. And the competition itself is an excellent platform for players and teams just to progress and show their capabilities.
A lot of, it was a massive achievement then for the club, yes, getting through the group, because I know there was a difficult group, yes, and I was there for the latter stages, so it was, it was a massive step up for them, and they've done very well.
Yes, no, 100%. And again, even the quarter-final that we went to, we brought Wexford here, and it ended 3-2, but it was a tough game. Tactically it took a lot. And we thought we had it, but look, a couple of things ended up happening within the game, and unfortunately we didn't come out the right side of it. But hopefully now that's lessons for a young squad that we had that we can take into this season's competition.
You mentioned this season. Tell us a little bit about the aspirations then for the season ahead.
Well, again, it's time for now Ryan and myself and the staff to reflect on the style of play, reflect on our methodologies. How can we improve so then we do improve next season? We don't want to stop at where we were. Now, in terms of goals, we don't like going out and saying we want to achieve this, we want to achieve that. But our players are excited. We've been meeting with our players and we've been saying these are our plans. And we are going to improve. We're going to improve how we do things. We're going to keep becoming professional, and hopefully then we can take further steps. And we look forward to some of the plans. The board have been excellent with us in terms of support for different things that are going to happen this season. So it's exciting times for Linfield. So definitely people should be keeping an eye.
Roy, certainly massive improvements, and as Adam says, they're exciting times for the women's game.
It's good to see the progression for the ladies' team. I don't see many of the games, but Stephen Dixon keeps me well up to date. And they're a very exciting young team from what I have seen. So I know there are plans in place to try and maybe strengthen again for next season. Yeah. But it is a very competitive league, and there's maybe a slight gap there between the top two. But I think Linfield can push on this year, and there's talk of maybe a second European competition coming in at some stage. So I think that's a big incentive for Linfield and any other clubs.
Just how big of a step will that be for the women's game, do you think, Roy, with a second European competition coming into play?
Well, Linfield have played in Europe before. Of course, we've played in the Champions League, but I think it's really important that that there's that incentive for teams, that they're not just the Champions League. We've now got 3 competitions in the men's game. So I think it's important that the ladies' game keeps pace with that, and hopefully the second competition comes in, and maybe a third in the future as well. So I think it's good for the game.
We'll move on now. Obviously there was no games last week played in the Irish League. There's been a lot of talk all week about why the games were off, how late the postponements were. Roy, what's your views on that? I know you were spoken on Twitter.
I don't think last Saturday was a great day for the league or for its reputation, to be honest. And I've made my views known on social media, which maybe didn't go down well in some quarters, but I think it's important that you have to be honest and call it out as you see it. I think to be fair to the league, they have come out now this week and put their hands up and said mistakes were made in terms of late call-offs, but the people I feel most sorry for are our supporters. You know, we were asking families and young children to travel in what were horrendous conditions last Saturday. So I think a lesson learned really for the league is that, you know, where there are severe weather warnings in place, make the call early and take it out of the club's hands and make the call across the league. And I think that'll be appreciated by supporters of all clubs.
Adam, do you have any views on that then yourself?
Yeah, I was personally, me and Ryan, we were going up to actually watch the game, and I was very surprised. Sort of whenever I'd seen it was called off so late, and at the end of the day, I think it's an amateur decision made by a professional body, but it's something then the league can learn from, and then hopefully now, if this does occur again, we don't make these mistakes, and then they can make the decisions earlier, and it's more considerate towards the fans.
Have you ever came across anything like that in the women's game yourself?
Not quite. Usually it is called off fairly before. We've had a few changes of maybe venue due to floodlights, but nothing an hour and 15 before kick-off.
Okay, we'll move on to the last 5 results then that we have for both teams. We'll start with our visitors today, Coleraine. You can see there the last game played was the 4-1 win. Oh, sorry, the last game played was 3-3 against Glenavon. I think that was the game they were 3-1 up.
Yeah.
Roy,
I'll come to you first. Our visitors with a bit of a mixed bag of results then?
Yeah, they're a hard team to sort of predict at the minute this season. I mean, we had quite a comfortable win up the showgrounds early in the season, 3-0. I think we did half-time, 3-0 up. But looking at that, you know, they've scored a few goals, but also conceded a few goals. So it's hard to know what you might get from Coleraine, but they've caused us problems here in the past. I mean, I look back to the game here after the split last season, where probably cost us the league title. You know, they scored late on here, and Lawrence scored at the Oval, and everything changed within a few minutes. So they are a team that I think that they enjoy coming to Windsor Park, enjoy the big pitch, and they will cause us problems. Although I see there's a few players missing today going with the team sheet, so hopefully that helps us, and we have a few back, which is good.
Adam, then Coleraine's fixtures yourself. What's your opinion on the way things are going for them this season?
Yeah, I've watched a good bit of Coleraine this season, and I've heard a lot about Dean as a coach. He's very highly rated. Obviously, he's had experience even within the women's game, but with his side of Coleraine, they're an interesting team. They want to draw the opposition in, and they want to dominate. They want to dominate the small areas and punish in big spaces that are created. Now today, without Shevlin, they may struggle with that, but I do think they will cause some problems to Linfield today. You know, they're the youngest side in the league on average, which is really important, and they're the second highest scoring team as well. So I do think there will be goals today, but I do think Linfield will have the edge over them.
You mentioned them there being the second highest scoring team. As Roy alluded to there, they seem to be leaking a lot of goals. Do you think that's maybe bound to the fact that it's taken us some of the players a bit of time to adjust to moving to full time?
Well, yeah, I do think that the transition from part-time to full-time has been massive. I think a lot of clubs have dealt with it very well, but sometimes there's only so much you can cover, and obviously now they're in the full-time environment. It is different for players. You know, players are going in, getting different things. Loading comes into play. But conceding the fourth amount of goals, with fourth most goals in the league, is a lot for a team that you would expect to be potentially a little bit higher. So it'll be interesting to see how they can adapt to Linfield today.
Roy, you know yourself then what it's like for a team moving from part-time football to full-time. This is Coleraine's first season. What difficulties then does that pose for Coleraine?
I think it's a whole new environment, and it's not just the full-time training, but it's everything that comes with that, all the infrastructure you have to put in place around the club. So it does take a bit of getting used to, not just for players, but for staff and even directors. So it will take a bit of time for them, you know, and I think they're in for the long haul in terms of the owners who've come in and put investment into the club. So I think they'll be patient, you know, with Coleraine. They have a young team. They've brought in a lot of new players this season. But I still think they'll make the top 6 this year. You know, I think they're good enough in terms of looking at the quality, you know, across the squad. They've got people up front who'll always cause problems. So, but I think maybe next year before you see the best of them.
Well, you mentioned the top 6 there. We'll take a little look at the table now. You'll see Coleraine in an uncharacteristic position so far outside of the top 6. Adam, will come to you first then with the league table.
Look, at the end of the day, you see who's top of the league, and today with a win, you know, hopefully that could lead Linfield to be top at Christmas. I think, as I've sort of said, as Roy's alluded to, Coleraine probably will push for the top 6. You know, that's probably their target. Obviously, only they'll know their final targets. I think they're capable of going higher. But this season, I think it's been interesting to see. I think the levels have been closer. You know, there's been some surprising results. maybe you could say inconsistencies. So I would say we'll see at the end of the season that league table looks very, very different.
Roy, the league table there, as you can see, Dungannon, Swiss and Portadown certainly punching this season in the top 6. It's maybe a bit of a surprise this season so far.
It's been a really strange season so far, and I think teams have strengthened right across the league, and I think that the gap maybe between the top 6 and bottom 6 has narrowed definitely. I was really impressed with Portadown here, our last home game here in the league, where they really had a go at Linfield. Looked very, very impressive. I know they play Clifton today at Shamrock Park, and I think they'll probably get something out of that game today. But so that's the way it is across the league. Ballymena have caused us problems as well here. So all those teams have strengthened. They're all trying to get into the top 6. They all want to push on for Europe.
Would you say a lot of that's down to maybe the teams, that are going full time? The part-time clubs are maybe getting the pick now of the better players that aren't in the position to go full-time?
I think that's one factor. I mean, look at a player like Shane McCartan, who didn't really impress at Glentoran, suddenly goes back to part-time at Ballymena, and now he's flying again, probably been their star performer. So, yeah, I think that's one factor, but I just think everyone's pushing on. Look, there's investment coming into different clubs across the league, like even Carrick Rangers, who've bought 3 or 4 players now for the January transfer window. So it's just a very interesting league this year, and obviously we're in a very, very good place, and long may that continue.
We'll take a look now at Linfield's next 5 fixtures, or the last 5 results. Roy, you mentioned there that our last game was a 2-1 win here over Portadown.
Yeah, setting aside the Glentoran result, which was disappointing. I think we've had a really good run of form, and I think the really important thing to say is, with all the injuries that we've had, to be 7 points clear at this stage of the season, with our squad being decimated, it's only now we're starting to see players coming back. So I think it's been a great achievement for David and the players to get us in this position. Now the important thing is to kick on. We'll see Alex Roscoe coming back. McDade's on the bench today, and I spoke to Robbie 2 weeks ago, and he's absolutely flying in training. Can't wait to get back on the pitch again. So I hope if we get all our players back, like Charlie Allen back, Darren McBrien, Scott Whiteside and Kyle McLean, get them all back hopefully for Christmas. Stay ahead of the pack in the new year. I think the club's in a really, really good position. I know they've had their critics this year, and maybe that's been fair enough in some games, particularly against Glentoran. We haven't done that well, but I just think we'd have taken this position at the start of the season. So it's important now we really kick on.
Adam, certainly something Roy's alluded on there was all the players coming back from injury, a massive boost to David Healy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the hardest thing whenever players are injured is keeping them in the loop. But I think obviously I've seen Fallon coming back, and as you said, there's loads of players coming back at the minute. It's getting them fit enough and having them at a game sharpness that they can come in and that they can fit into the matches. And from what I've seen so far, they've done very well at that, and that's a credit to the staff. And again, there's still plenty of players to come back, and if Linfield are this strong with injury problems, I would love to see them whenever they have a fully fit squad.
It certainly gives a manager options even to rotate his side at times with a busy festive period just around the corner.
Yep, and I think rotation is massive in football, and it's so underutilised. Sometimes maybe players aren't so happy at not playing games, but they tend to thank the manager after the long workload whenever they are feeling fit and they're feeling ready for after the festive period. But look, it'll be interesting. It's always interesting to see how adaptable Linfield are. They've got options off the bench, and whenever they do come on, they don't look out of place. So it'll be interesting to see today.
Right, it's certainly something, as Adam says there, options off the bench. It's not something that we've had a lot of experience to come off the bench, especially in attacking areas this season.
I think that's very true. And in certain games, you look at the bench and think, it's young kids who aren't long out of the academy, and they haven't got the experience. And I know Dave doesn't always like to throw them in. But yeah, I think looking at their squad now, it looks particularly strong. So I know David and Molly McEwen will assess that over the next few weeks and see maybe if we need anything else in January. If they think there's areas of the team that we can strengthen, then I think the board will try to give them the backing to do that. But I'm really confident, that we can push ahead for the rest of the season. The league title is the priority at this club. It has to be. We haven't won it for 2 years. So now it's the time to kick on and try and stay in front. Right up to the end of the season.
Do you feel much pressure in the January transfer window? I know you maybe get a bit of stick sometimes, but
there's always pressure at this club. As I say, the squad's in a good place, but we always look to strengthen here at Linfield. I think in previous January transfer windows, it's a tough window to get maybe in the players you want, but we have brought players in, even like Chris McKay on loan, E2 for retaining, and they made an impact, towards the end of the season. So I think if you can find 1 or 2 who can strengthen certain positions, I think we'll try and do that.
Adam, then the January transfer window yourself, it's, as Roy says there, it's certainly you strengthen when you're on top, so to speak?
Definitely. I think it's an interesting period because you maybe got players who haven't been playing in the early half of the season, so then that can be your option. It also gives you an opportunity to have a look towards the summer. You know, players who maybe are running out of contract, haven't got a new deal, you can start dropping them seeds, planting them seeds. But in terms of business, it'll be good for the staff to reflect after this festive period and understand, right, okay, this is what we need and this is what we're going to do to go forward.
Okay, then we'll take a little look at the squad then for today's match against Coleraine. Looking at it there, there's no changes from last week against Dungannon Swifts with the same starting 11. As you said there, Roy, a few players coming back. Certainly good to see.
Yeah, when you look at the defence here, the spine of the defence, you know, with Roscoe, East and Hall, they haven't played together too much this season, to be honest. You know, they've all been out at various stages, so to have those three back really strengthens the defence. And young Matty Orr's been doing really well at right back as well, and obviously Ethan McGee there to come in too. So I think the spine of the team's looking good there. Chris Shields hopefully moved back in the midfield, where I think he brings so much into that position, and we're stronger when he's playing in there. So no, the team's looking strong. Stevie Fallon, let's hope we can get a real run of games and try and avoid injury, because there's no better player in this league when he's on form. It just hasn't had that run in the team this season.
Adam, you mentioned Stevie Fallon yourself earlier on the show there. A very strong Linfield side.
It is definitely a very strong Linfield side. It'll be interesting to see how they sort of start out the game. My take on Linfield is how adaptable they are. You know, they'll recognise what Colerane's strengths and weaknesses are very early on, and they do change the way to play, which is an absolute nightmare for oppositions whenever the manager starts changing, chopping, changing. But again, it's not random. It is, again, credit to the coaching staff within the full-time environment. They have a team who have multiple ways to win a match. So it's then changes of the system, not changing the style of play, but it's different areas where they can look to overload Coleraine. And I see obviously Kirk starting. Kirk causing problems at showgrounds. So hopefully then today he can do even more.
Roy, you mentioned there earlier no Shevlin or no Jimmy McGonigal in the Coleraine side today. It's something then that it'll be interesting to see what way they shape up and who plays up front for them today.
Yeah, I was quite surprised to see that now, because I hadn't heard any of those two players were injured. So Shevlin has been scoring goals for fun this season and last season. So I think that'll weaken Coleraine today. I'm not sure who they might play up front going by that squad, but probably some young players will be playing from today, so they're a bit of an unknown quantity, probably for ourselves as well. So it's just hard to know how they'll line up today, but they've good experience in there too, like Glack and Lyndon Kane, you know, the players there have been around. But I think looking at the two teams, you know, Linfield looks stronger on paper, so whether we can do that on the pitch, that's the main thing.
Adam, Roy mentioned young players there. Matty Orr certainly come in, been a massive surprise package this season.
Absolutely. It's brilliant to see, you know, the work that goes on there with Galty and Glenn and the academy. It's a credit to them and the staff below that, you know, the staff who are working up from even under 13 level, you know, and Linfield have plenty of players who have come through the academy and played for the first team, and even now showing their quality across the water. And there's plenty more to come. I tell you that. So but it is brilliant to see, you know, the likes of Matty Orr coming into the side and doing so well. You know, you don't always have to go across the water to shine.
Okay, before we'll let you go, we'll have predictions for the match today. Roy, normally you're very good at this.
Not far away, yeah.
Apart from the Glentour match here. But I'll start with you, Roy. How do you see the game going today?
I think there'll be goals in the game today. I think both teams like to get forward, and there's players in both teams who can cause problems. So I think Linfield will win. I probably would go for 3-1 today.
And Adam, then yourself?
I was going to go for a slightly higher scoring one, but now seeing the lineup, I think I'm going to go for just 3-2 now. So I think there will.
Linfield, I hope?
No, 3-2 to Linfield.
That'll be not good for the nerves.
Yes, I know.
It'll be one for the spectator, definitely.
No, well, thanks very much, Adam, for taking time out to join us today. And Roy, thanks very much again. So thanks very much for joining us, folks, and tune in again very soon. Thank you.